Shalom. The prophet Elisha, Eliyahu in Hebrew. Elisha was the prophet of Israel. Elisha the Gileadi or Gileadite from the region of Gilead, east of the Jordan, in the territory of Manasseh, was a Cohen, that is from the tribe of Levi, a priestly family from the tribe of Levi. He became a prophet. And Elisha was his apostle. Elisha was his follower, was his student. And Elijah found Elisha plowing the field of his parents, and then he called upon Elisha to come with him, to follow him. See 1 Kings 1:19. Elijah had been commanded to anoint Elisha son of Shaphat from Abel Maholah. Abel Maholah is believed to be near the city of Brit-Am, the territory of Manasseh, but Abel Maholah itself was in the region of Issachar. Elisha came from Issachar. And Elijah had been told that Elisha would succeed him. The name Elisha in Hebrew connotes God saves. El Elisha Shah connotes salvation. It can also connote, as another connotation, that Elisha, God or my God, Shah saves, grants me salvation, is my salvation. Elisha was to see Elijah be taken up to heaven in a fiery chariot, see 2 Kings 2:11. And Elisha took up the mantle, that is the cloak of Elijah, after Elisha went up to heaven. And Elijah and Elisha had gone together to a spot by the Jordan River, and Elisha had rolled his cloak up and struck the Jordan River with it. The Jordan River split asunder, and the two had passed over the river bed. Now Elisha, after he saw Elisha go up to heaven in a chariot, a fiery chariot, he took the mantle, that is the cloak, and in his turn he also struck the Jordan River with it. The Jordan River divided into two, just as it is done for Elijah, see 2 Kings 14. The sons of the prophets, that is, those who were accompanying them, that their students, their apprentices to the prophets, were learning to become prophets themselves and hoping to be like them, now recognized that Elisha was successor of Elijah. Nearby was the city of Jericho. The water supply of the city of Jericho was bad, was thickening, was causing sickness and death. Elisha cast salt into its sources and cured it. Elisha then continued from Jericho in the direction of Bethel. Both Jericho and Bethel were in the territory of Benjamin, of the tribe of Benjamin, which at that time pertained to the city of Judah in the south. The Israelite tribes are divided into two sections. You had the section known as the Kingdom of Judah in the south, comprising Judah, Benjamin, eventually most of Levi, and also minority elements from the other tribes. That was the Kingdom of Judah, whereas the Kingdom of Israel, of the 10 tribes in the north, comprised all the rest of the tribes. That is a majority, and they were destined to be conquered by the Assyrians and taken into exile, and to lose awareness, to lose consciousness of their ancestry. At all events, Elisha was continuing on the way, accompanied by his Talmudim, his students, and they met up with a crowd of small boys, Narim Katanim, it says in Hebrew. Now, this word, Narim Katanim, is also translated as youths, and it may not necessarily have been small boys or youths. In Hebrew, in Hebrew literature can be a euphemism, a polite form, or uh, a more sensitive way of, of describing men and grown adults that act irresponsibly like children. It's also mentioned in the Talmud. So these boys could also have been men. We don't know. At all events, they cursed him. They insulted him. They called him Baldy. Apparently, he didn't have any hair, or he had little hair. And consequently, two female bears came out of the woods. Two female bears came out of the woods. Female bears sometimes lose their young. They somehow or other lose contact with their children and become very angry, extremely angry. They become irrepressible. And they came out of the woods and they tore 42 of the boys to pieces. From there, Elisha continued northwards into the northern kingdom. He went first to Mount Carmel, near the present-day city of Haifa. And from there, he moved southwards towards Samaria, the capital of the northern kingdom. Meanwhile, Jehoram, son of Ahab, Jehoram was the king of Israel in Samaria. Jehoram was actually better than his forefathers, better than his father at least, but he still continued the pagan practices of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, the first king of Israel. After the Israelites had separated from Judah, it said Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who was their first king, and he had set up two golden calves, one in Dan, the other in Bethel, and he told the Israelites not to go up to Jerusalem anymore, not to go up to the temple, but to worship one of these two calves, either the one in Bethel or the one in Dan, these golden calves, to worship them instead of worshiping God in Jerusalem. Jeroboam had forbidden the Israelites to go up to Jerusalem, and Jehoram continued this practice. He ruled over the kingdom of Moab. At some stage, the Israelites had conquered Moab, which was to the east, and it was rich in sheep, and had been paying tribute to Jehoram of Israel. Moab had rebelled, and Joram asked King Jehoshaphat of Judah, the neighboring kingdom of Judah, to assist him. Jehoram was the king of Israel. Jehoram was the king of Israel. Jehoshaphat was the king of Judah. And Jehoram asked King Jehoshaphat of Judah to assist him. So together they went forward with the king of Edom, who was also allied with them, and they invaded Moab. And then they found themselves wandering in the wilderness without water and in danger of perishing, all three of them, all the three armies of Judah, of the kingdom of Israel, and of the kingdom of Edom. They were allied and moving together, and they were lacking water, in danger of perishing. And Elisha had been traveling with them, and he agreed to intercede. And he requested a musician to play his instrument, to play an instrument, to facilitate him inducing a state of prophecy. He used music. Some of the prophets used music to cause them, to enable them to uplift their spirits and enable them to contemplate and pray and to bring upon themselves the spirit of prophecy. And Elisha, in this state, told the Israelites and the others that water was on its way and they would be victorious against the Moabites. And indeed, a river of water arrived from the direction of Edom. So this sometimes happens in desert regions. You have rain falling higher up from where you are, and it very quickly fills up the wadi beds, and suddenly you can have a rush of water flowing down. This is what happened. So the Israelites were saved through this water. Meanwhile, the Moabites had gathered together to go to war against their allies, but they saw the sun shining on the water in the morning, and with the sun shining on the water in the morning, it looked to them like red blood. And they imagined that their allies, that is Judah, Israel, and Edom, had quarreled amongst themselves and fought against each other and been killing each other. And then they entered the camp of Israel, expecting to find dead bodies everywhere. But the Israelites fell upon them. The Moabites were then driven back into their city, and they were losing the fight. But the king of Moab sacrificed his son on the city wall, which this was a practice of the Canaanites. We have Egyptian depictions of the land of Canaan, and we see Canaanites doing this. So when they are besieged, they would take the son of a leading person in the city and sacrifice him on the city wall. And this is what they did. And the allies, when they saw this happen, for some reason they were frightened or they lost spirit and they retreated. So that was one of the miracles of Elisha, that he prayed for water to come, and water had come. Another miracle of Elisha concerns one of the prophets, a widow of one of the prophets who owed money. She was on the verge of selling her two sons, into servitude to pay off the debt. In other words, she was going to sell the sons to indentured servitude to pay off the debt. She didn't obviously she didn't want to do that, so she cried out to Elisha. Elisha asked her what she had left in the house. She replied she had a flask of olive oil. And Elisha told her to borrow empty vessels, borrow empty jars, empty containers from all her neighbors, as many as possible. And she did so, and then from the small vial of olive oil that she had, she filled up all the vessels. And Elisha told her then to sell the oil, pay her debt. Olive oil is quite valuable even today, and also then. So Elisha told her to take the oil that she now had, to sell it, to pay her debt, and with what was left over, to live off. And this is what she did. Another miracle concerning Elisha concerns a couple that Elisha and his servant Gehazi were in the habit of intermittently sojourning in their household. In Shunem, which is in the territory of Issachar, in the Jezreel Valley in the east of North Israel, Shunem in the territory of Issachar. So there was a couple living there, and when Elisha and Gehazi, his servant, would be in the region, they would lodge there. And the owner of the house set aside a special room with furniture for Elisha. And out of gratitude, Elisha promised the couple a son, which came. So a boy was born. And when he was grown up, or partially grown up, he was smitten by a sunstroke, and he died. So the lady of the house took the boy, laid him on his bed, laid him on the bed in the room of Elisha, and then she travelled by donkey to Mount Carmel near Haifa, where Elisha was staying. She demanded that Elisha come to the house. Elisha did so, and he brought back the boy to life. He brought the boy back to life using a technique resembling mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Nevertheless, it was a miracle, but it was using natural means. Another miracle concerning Elisha concerns the time when he was staying with the children of the prophets. The children of the prophets were those who were learning, who were men who were young, usually young men, who were assembled around Elisha, as they had previously done around Eliel, in order to learn from him. and also eventually perhaps if they were worthy to become prophets themselves. That time there were many prophets in Israel. And there was a famine in the land. And the communal pot of stew, these people, these men, they lived together. And they had a pot of stew which was supposed to have fed everyone. And it had inadvertently been poisoned by the insertion of wild herbs. Someone had gone out, picked up wild herbs, put them in the pot of stew. But he had picked up the wrong ones and spoiled the stew. And Elisha told the attendants to put flour in the pot, and the stew became edible. And that something similar happened to a friend of mine, an associate of mine. He was told that a certain plant had a good effect on those who ate it, a certain wild plant. So he ate it, and he was hospitalized. It almost killed him. So we have to be careful what we do, what we put in our mouth. Another miracle concerns a visitor who came with a few loaves of bread and some currants, dried grapes, and Elisha caused the bread fruit to be placed before 100 men. And it was enough for all of them with much left over. Another miracle concerned the chief general of the king of Aram. Aram is another name for Syria. Syria in the north, Syria to the north of Israel. It's known as Aram. And this general, the chief general of the king of Aram, was named Naaman. And he was a leper. Leprosy is a very serious disease. Now, it is relatively speaking quite rare, but it still exists, and lepers are still around. It's quite a serious state of affairs. So Naaman had this disease, and he had trouble getting rid of it. It's almost impossible to be entirely cured from it. But in his household, he had a maid servant. She was being taken captive as a little girl, and she was serving in the house of Naaman. And this maidservant said to her mistress, the wife of Naaman, that Elisha was a prophet named Elisha who could cure Naaman of his leprosy. So the king of Aram sent a gift of gold and silver and clothing to the king of Israel in Samaria, with a message saying that the Syrian general Naaman would be arriving soon and that he was to be cured of his leprosy. And the king of Israel was offended. He was afraid. He thought the Arameans, the king of Aram, simply wanted an excuse to go to war with him. And he was looking for an excuse to start a war. But Elisha, the prophet, he heard of this. He sent a message to the king saying that Naaman should be sent to him. So Naaman came with his entourage. He approached the house of Elisha. Elisha sent out a message. He didn't go to meet Naaman. He sent a messenger to him. Tell him to go and immerse himself 7 times in the Jordan River. Naaman was a bit insulted by this. He was an important person, one of the most important people at that time in all of the world. He was the chief warrior, the chief general of the kingdom of Aram. And he was insulted by not being greeted, not being received by Elisha himself, but only by a messenger. And his messenger told him to go and immerse himself in the Jordan River, which was, according to what he said, was relatively small compared to rivers in his own country, and of less importance. But nevertheless, the attendants of Naaman prevailed upon him. They said, what do you care? You came all this way. What do you care? Whether he's treated you with respect or not, he's only asked a little thing, and it's worth trying. So Naaman did as requested, and he was cured of his leprosy. And then he returned. This time he went to Elisha, who did not receive him, and he acknowledged the God of Israel as God. And he asked Elisha to take a gift from him, but Elisha refused. And Naaman undertook to correct his ways and then continued on his journey. Meanwhile, Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, made an excuse to leave the presence of Elisha, and he chased after Naaman, and he told him that messengers from the sons of the prophet had just come to Elisha, and an urgent need for funds had suddenly arisen. So Naaman gave Gehazi as much silver and clothing as 2 men could carry, and Gehazi went and hid them in his house and then came to Elisha. And Elisha told Gehazi that he had seen through prophecy what had happened. Gehazi would now be exceedingly rich, but he and his descendants would also be smitten with the leprosy that Naaman had previously been afflicted with. And so it was, and so it happened.